Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn the Gemara Masechta Shabbos on Daf Daled Amud Aleph, Daf Daled Amud Beis, and Daf Hey Amud Aleph. So this is a very long piece of the Gemara. So we'll just mention that the structure of the Gemara is we're going to ask one question, we're going to give 5 answers, reject each of those answers, and then present the final answer. Let's begin. Pashat Ani Yasyadi. In the Mishnah, we learned that if either the Ani or the Balabayas does the malacha of Hachnasa or Eitzah, they're chayev. Ask the Gemara, Amai chayev? Why is he chayev? V'ba'inon Akira v'anacha, but we need an akira and anacha me'al gabi mokim dalad al dalad, from upon a place that's 4 by 4 tefachim. V'lakin, we don't have it. In each of the cases of the Mishnah, there's either a hanacha being made into somebody's hand, or it's an akira being made from somebody's hand. The question is, so why are they ever chayev if a person's hand is not 4 by 4 tefachim? And in order to be chayev, the akira and the anacha need to be from and to a place that's 4 by 4 tefachim. Amar Rabba said, Rabba answers this question, Hamani, who is our Mishnah follow? Which opinion is it? Rabbi Kiva, it's the opinion of Rabbi Kiva. The Amar that said, Leiba Inan, we do not need makim in area, arba, that's 4 by 4 tefachim. Where do we see that Rabbi Kiva said this? The Tnan, for we learned in the Mishnah, Hazerg Rishus HaYachid, one who throws an object from one Rishus HaYachid, Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid, Rishus HaRabim Be'ems, and there's a Rishus HaRabim in between. Rabbi Kiva mechayev, Rabbi Kiva makes him chayev, v'chachamim paitrim, and chachamim make him potter. What are they arguing about? Rabbi Kiva savar, Rabbi Kiva holds, amrinon, we say, kluto, and when an item is contained in the ear of an area, kimisha unchadam, it's if it's resting there, and therefore when the object was thrown from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid, through the Rishus HaRabim, when it was going through the Rishus HaRabim, it's as if it's resting in the Rishus HaRabim, and therefore the person did a malacha of Haitzah, he carried out of the Rishus HaYachid into the Rishus HaRabim. So we see that Rabbi Kiva holds that we don't need hanacha onto an area that's 4 by 4 tefachim, because here it's actually going through the Rishus HaRabim, it's not resting at all. The Rabbanan Savrin, the Rabbanan hold, Lo Yamrinon, we do not say Kluto Kemisha Hunchadamya, when an item is contained in the ear of an area, it's as if it's resting there. And therefore the person is pater when he threw from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid over the Rishus HaRabim, since it never rested in the Rishus HaRabim. So that's the answer of Rabbah, that our Mishnah fits with the opinion of Rabbi Kiva, who says that there's no need for akira and anacha to be done from and to an area that's 4 by 4 tefachim. Before the Gemara asks a question on this answer of Rabbah, we're first going to get into a bit of a side discussion. And that is, the Gemara is going to ask a question here. Lememra, are we saying the pshita leila Rabbah, that it's clear to Rabbah, the bekluta kamisha huncha damya, that by kluta kamisha huncha, whether when something's contained in the ear of an area, it's considered resting there, and within 10 tefachim pligi they're arguing? Was it clear to Rabbah that the argument between Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim is a case where the person threw the object from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid, when it went over the Rishus HaRabim, that it was number one within 10 tefachim, because if it's above 10 tefachim, even if it's considered resting there, that's fine, because it's a makam p'tur. Above 10 tefachim in Rishus HaRabim is a makam p'tur, and a person is permitted to carry from a Rishus HaYachid to a makam p'tur. So was it clear to Rabbah 2 things? Number 1, that they're arguing within 10 tefachim, and number 2, that the argument's about kuluto. But this is actually a question that Rabbah had. Rabbah was unsure what they're arguing about. So how could Rabbah just say it's Rabbi Kiva, as if it's, and state that Rabbi Kiva says kluto, and Rabbanan don't say kluto, when Rabbah actually had a question how to interpret the brayso. Now the Gemara is going to present what was Rabbah's question. The Bayi Rabbah, for Rabbah asked, Lamata miyud pligi, are they arguing below 10 tefachim? Over ha pligi, and this is what they're arguing about. The Rabbi Kiva Sara, the Rabbi Kiva holds, Kuluto Kamisha Hunchadamyo, that when an item is contained in the ear of an area, it's as if it's resting there. Rabbanan Savrin, the Rabbanan hold, Lo Yamrinon Kuluto, we do not say when an item is contained in the ear of an area, Kamisha Hunchadamyo, it's as if it's resting there. But above 10 tefachim, if the object was thrown from one Rishus HaYachid to another through the Rishus HaRabim, but above 10 tefachim, Divra kol pater, everybody agrees pater, v'dekula alma, and everybody agrees lo yalfinun zerg from Meshit. We do not learn zerg from Meshit. Let's explain that for a moment. In the Mishkan, the Levim would pass the beams from one wagon to another wagon that were lined up in a row, and between the 2 wagons there was an area of Rishus HaRabim, so they passed it from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid through a Rishus HaRabim, and these Rishus HaYachids were above 10 tefachim high. And from there we learn that if somebody passes an item from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid through a Rishus HaRabim, and he passed it above 10 tefachim, he's chayiv, that's a malacha of Shabbos. So it would come out over here that they're arguing below 10 tefachim, and we're going to say that above 10 tefachim they all agree that the person's pater, and the reason is we do not learn throwing from passing. Passing in such a way is chayiv, throwing is not. So is that the way we look at the Mishnah? Or maybe maybe they're actually arguing above 10 tfachim. And this is what they're arguing about. The Rabbi Kiva Savar, the Rabbi Kiva holds Yalfinon Zerek Moshet. We do learn passing from throwing, and just like passing above 10 tfachim from one Rosh Hashanah to another over Rosh Hashanah is chayiv, the same is for throwing. The Rabbanon Savri and the Rabbanon hold Lo Yalfinon Zerek Moshet. We do not learn throwing from passing. Passing in such a way is chayiv, throwing is pater. But below 10 tfachim, divrei kol chayiv, everybody will agree that the person who passed through from one Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah over Rosh Hashanah, if it's beneath 10 tfachim, everybody will agree that he's chayiv. My time, what's the reason? Amrina, we say kluta, when an item is contained in the ear of an area, it's if it's resting there, and therefore it's chayiv because it's if it was resting in the Rosh Hashanah that it passed through. So here the Gemara is asking a side question, which is, how can it be that Rabbah is presenting it so clearly? What the machlek is between Rabbi Kiva and the Chamim is in the Mishnah if he actually had a question. So the Gemara answers, Hali Kasha, this is not difficult, this is not a question. Basar di Ibaya, after he had the question, Hadr Ifshet, he later on answered it. The Savar Rabbi Kiva, the Rabbi Kiva is the one who holds Kluta Kamisha Chadamia, that when an item is contained in the ear of an area, it's if it's resting there. So the Gemara resolved the side question. Now we're going to go back to the answer of Rabbah, which is that our Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Kiva, who says it's not necessary to have an akira, an anacha, from and to a place that's 4x4 tfachim. The Gemara asks, V'dilman, maybe hanacha hu baya. Maybe it's anacha that where a person doesn't need that it should be onto an area that's 4x4 tfachim. Ha akira baya, but an akira it does need. Why are we saying this? Because Rabbi Kiva only said that he's chayiv. As far as we hear, he's chayiv once. So when a person threw it from Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah through Rosh Hashanah, and the object flew over the Rosh Hashanah, we say Kluta Kamishon as if it's resting in the Rosh Hashanah, and therefore the person's chayiv for the malacha of Eitzah. He took it from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, but we don't see that he's chayiv a second time for Achnasa when it went from the Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. So all we see is that the hanacha doesn't need to be on a place that's 4x4 tfachim, but we don't see that the akira doesn't have to be from a place that's 4x4 tfachim. So therefore we can't say that our Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Kiva. Ella Omer Rav Yosef, rather Rav Yosef said, Hamani, who is the opinion of our Mishnah? Rebbe, it's the opinion of Rebbe. Ask the Gemara, hi Rebbe, which Rebbe is this? And that's really the entirety of the question. Which Rebbe is this? Because if you actually look at the teachings of Rebbe, that might be able to be interpreted to say that we don't need a kira and anacha from and to a place that's 4x4 tfachim, we'll actually see that it's not saying that. Now the Gemara is going to bring down the two places what we might use to say that this is the opinion of Rebbe, and we'll show that it doesn't fit. So the Gemara says, hi Rebbe, which Rebbe is this? Look and see that it doesn't fit into any teaching of Rebbe. Ilema ha Rebbe, if you're going to say it's the following Rebbe, this Rebbe, the Tanya that we learned in a Brisa, Zorak, if an individual threw an item 4 amas in Rosh Hashanah, which is a malacha on Shabbos, v'nachal gabe ziz kol shehu, and it rested on a protrusion that was very small, Rebbe mechayev, Rebbe makes the individual chayev for carrying 4 amas in Rosh Hashanah, v'chachamim poitrim, and the chachamim make him potter. So it would seem that Rebbe holds it's not necessary to have anacha onto an area that's 4x4 tfachim. Says the Gemara, Hasam over there, it's like we wanted to say l'kamam later on, kedabaya, that it goes like a baya. The Amar Abaya that Abaya said, Hacha over here, in this case in the Brisa, where Rebbe and the Chachamim are arguing, it's be'ilan, it's by a tree, ha'imid Rosh Hashanah, that's standing in Rosh Hashanah, and its branch extends into the Rosh Hashanah. V'zarak, and the person threw the item 4 amas, and it landed on the branch. The Rebbe Savar, that Rebbe holds, Amrinon, we say Shadi Neifa, throw the branch Basir Kare after the trunk. The branch follows the trunk. Since the branch extends from the trunk, so we say the trunk is 4x4 tfachim, so it's considered when the person throws it onto the branch, he threw it onto an area that's 4x4 tfachim, and therefore he's chayiv. So it comes out that Rebbe actually holds that the anacha needs to be on an area that's 4x4 tfachim. Rabbanan Savri, and the Rabbanan hold, Lo Yamrinon, we do not say Shadi Neifa Basir Kare, that the branch follows the trunk. Rather, we say the trunk is 4x4 tfachim, the branch is not, and therefore, if it landed on the branch, the person is not chayiv, since the anacha is not on an area that's 4x4 tfachim. So it doesn't fit into that teaching of Rebbe. The Gemara continues, Ella, har Rebbe, are you going to tell me that it's the following Rebbe? It's this Rebbe? The Tanya that we learned in a Brisa. Zarek Merushus Arabim, Merushus Arabim. If somebody threw an item from one Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah be'emsa, there's a Rosh Hashanah in between. So it's the opposite of the earlier case. Here, the Rosh Hashanahs are on the outside, and the Rosh Hashanah is in the middle. So Rebbe Mechayev, Rebbe makes him Chayev, V'chachamim Paitrim, and the Chachamim make him Pater. Va'omer Rav Yehuda Omer Shmuel. Rav Yehuda Omer Shmuel said, Mechayev ha'ya Rebbe shtayim. Rebbe made the person chayev two things. Achas mishum haitzah, one for haitzah. Va'achas mishum achnasa, and one for achnasa. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shmuel explained that when Rabbi said that the person's chayiv, it doesn't mean like we said earlier by Rabbi Kiva, he's only chayiv once. He's chayiv two. He's chayiv from Rishus HaYachid from Rishus HaRabim to the Rishus HaYachid, which is Achnasa, and then when it went from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim, which is Haitzah. Almost so we see, Loi boy akira v'loi anacha, the person does not need not an akira and not an anacha, al gabi makim dalat al dalat, on a place that's 4x4 tefachim, because when it passed through the Rishus HaYachid, it didn't actually land and rest on an area that's 4x4, and nevertheless we say it's considered like it rested, and that resting is good enough to make it a achnasa, and then when it continued moving into the Rishus HaRabim, we said that's good enough to be considered an akira from the Rishus HaYachid into the Rishus HaRabim, and there's Haitzah, although there's no actual resting on a place that's 4x4 tefachim. Says the Gemara, that won't either fit with our question. Ha'itmar Allah, but what's said on it, Rav and Shmuel, the Armi Tarvayu, they both said, Loi mechayev Rebbe did not make the person chayev in that case, Ella, except Rishus HaYachid Mekera, by Rishus HaYachid that had a roof on it. So it's referring to that he threw it from one Rishus HaRabim to another Rishus HaRabim, not over a courtyard, but rather through a house. It went through one window and out of the other window. And why over there does Rebbe say that he's chayiv, and why specifically over there? Damrinan, because we say Beisa Keman de Malya Dam. Beisa, the house, Keman de Malya, it's as if it's full damya, it's similar. It's similar to an area that's full of items, and therefore, when it passed through the house that has a roof, the house is considered full of items, full of objects, and therefore it's resting on those objects, and you have hanocha, and then once again an akira. But if it did not have a roof loy, it's not going to be chayev. And therefore in our Mishnah, where there's no roof, we can't apply the opinion of Rebbe. Says the Gemara, V'chi tema, and if you will say, Hachanami, here also in our Mishnah, but Mekera, it's referring to that there was a roof. Says the Gemara, that won't work. Ha'teinech b'Rishus HaYachid Mekera, that will fit in the Rishus HaYachid that had a roof. The Balabayas in Rishus HaYachid, there was a roof above him. But b'Rishus HaRabim Mekera, mi chayev, but in Rishus HaRabim that has a roof, would there be any chiyuv? If there was a Rishus HaRabim that had a roof, there would be no chiyuv for either of them, since it's not a real Rishus HaRabim. V'Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. We have a teaching over here that says, Hamavir chayfetz dalad amas b'Rishus HaRabim, one who carries an item 4 amas in Rishus HaRabim, Mekera that had a roof on it, pater, he's pater. Since the fee, because she'ena deim l'digla midbar, it's not like the camping in the midbar. The way we know what a Rishus HaRabim is, the structure of the Rishus HaRabim is based on the way it was in the midbar, and in the midbar there was no roof, and therefore, if a Rishus HaRabim has a roof, it's not considered a Rishus HaRabim. And if somebody carries dalad amas in that area, he's pater. And the same is true if in our Mishnah, the Rishus HaRabim where the ani was standing had a roof, neither of them would be chayev. So it doesn't fit into Rebbe. Ella Amar Rav Zera, rather Rav Zera said, Hamani, who is the opinion of our Mishnah? Acherim, it's acherim. The Tanya, for we learned in a brisa, acherim say, Amad b'mkeimei v'kibel chayev. It's referring to a case where a person threw an item, and another person caught it. He threw it 4 amas in Rishus HaRabim. So the brisa says, acherim say, Amad b'mkeimei, if the person who caught it stood in his place, he didn't move v'kibel and he caught it chayev, the person who threw it is chayev for passing dalad amas in Rishus HaRabim. But if the person who caught it, he got up from his place to go and catch it, pater, then the person who threw it is pater. Now let's see how we see from here how it's not necessary to have a kira and anacha from and to a place that's 4x4 tefachim. When the person stayed in his place and caught it, the person who threw it is chayev haba'inan, but we need hanacha al gabi mokim dal onto a place that's 4 tefachim v'lekem. We don't have it. He caught it in his hand. There's no area. It's not an area that's 4x4 tefachim. So we see from here that we do not need an area that's 4x4 tefachim for the hanacha. Says the Gemara, this won't either work. V'dilma, and maybe hanacha hu the loy, maybe hanacha doesn't need 4x4 tefachim according to the achirim. Ha'akira, but for the akira ba'inan, we do need an area that's 4x4 tefachim. And furthermore, v'hanacha nami, and also regarding the hanacha, dilma the pashat kanfei v'kibla. It says if the person stayed in his place and caught it, it could be that he didn't catch it with his hands. Rather, he had a jacket on, for example, and he held out his jacket and caught it in the jacket. And also regarding the anacha, dilma maybe the pashat kanfi that he extended out the corner of his garment, the kibble, and caught it over there. The ika nami anacha, that we also have anacha on an area that's 4 by 4 tefachim. So once again, we reject the answer of Rab Zera. Up to now, we presented 3 answers that we attempted to say that there are opinions that hold, whether it's Rabbi Kiva, whether it's Rebbe, or whether it's Acherim, that a person doesn't, that when you do a kira and a nacha, it doesn't need to be from and to a place that's 4 by 4 tefachim. Now we're going to go on to say that actually we do need 4 by 4 tefachim, and we actually have it in our Mishnah. Omer, that's going to be the next 3 answers. 2 of them we're going to reject, and then we'll present the final answer. Omer Rabbi Abba said, Masnis in our Mishnah Kegainus, for example, Shekibel betraskel, Viniach agabek traskel. It's for example that the person received it in a basket, and that he placed it into a basket. In other words, in the cases of our Mishnah, when the Oni, for instance, did the Achnasa, he put the object into a basket that the Balabayas was holding. And when he did it, he removed it from a basket that the Balabayas was holding. And the basket had 4 by 4 tefachim. The Ikonami Anacha that we also have Anacha, we have everything on an area that's 4 by 4 tefachim. Ask the Gemara, V'yadei Katani, but it says in the Mishnah, Pasha the Ani is Yadei, V'nasan l'seich Yadei shel Balabayas. It says that he placed it in the hand of the Balabayas. Answers the Gemara, Tani Traskel Shabayadi. Read the Mishnah to say, V'nasan l'seich Traskel Shabayadi. He put it into a basket that was in the hand of the Balabayas. Now, we're going to go once again into a side discussion. Before the Gemara explains why it doesn't like this answer, we're going to go to a side discussion. Says the Gemara, Ha'teinach Traskel B'Rishus HaYachid. That will make sense by the Balabayas who has the basket in Rishus HaYachid. Ela Traskel Shabarishus HaRabim, Rishus HaYachid. But the basket in the Rishus HaRabim, when the Ani is holding it, is the Rishus HaYachid. So when the Balabayas carried into it, he shouldn't be chayiv. So Lema, let us say, or come out, the Leik Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda, that our Mishnah, although we could say it's referring to a case where they had baskets, but it won't fit with Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda. Why not? The time before we learned in a brisa, Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it's kind of a Rishus HaRabim. If somebody placed a pole, stuck a pole into the ground in Rishus HaRabim, over Reshet Traskel, on the top of this pole there was a basket, Zarach v'nocha al gabav chayiv, and somebody threw an item from Rishus HaRabim into this basket, he's chayiv. And he's chayiv for the malacha of achanasa, because he brought it from Rishus HaRabim into Rishus HaYachid, because he holds that this basket has the status of Rishus HaYachid. The Ikir Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda, because if we're going to try to make our Mishnah fit with Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda, let's see what happens in the cases of the Mishnah. Pashat Balabayas is Yadei Lechutz, when the Balabayas extended his hand outwards into the Rishus HaRabim, V'nasan l'seich Yadei shel Ani, and he placed it into the hand of the Ani. And we said it's referring to in a basket. Amai chayiv, why is he chayiv? Rishus HaYachid, Rishus HaYachid kamapik. He's taking it out from one Rishus HaYachid into another Rishus HaYachid. So it seems that this interpretation, although it's a good interpretation, it won't be according to all opinions. It says the Gemara, no, afilu tema Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda. You could even say that it fits with Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda. Hasam l'mayla miyud, hachal l'mata miyud. Over there, when did Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda say that it has that a basket has a status of Rishus HaYachid if it's higher than 10 tefachim? Since the Rishus HaYachid has to have walls 10 tefachim high, so if the basket is above 10 tefachim, we say it's as if the size of the basket extends to the ground, and now it could be Rishus HaYachid because it's above 10 tefachim. However, in our Mishnah, we could say that the basket was below 10 tefachim, and then it doesn't have the status of Rishus HaYachid. It'll remain a Rishus HaRabim when the Ani is holding the basket. So that's the answer of Rabbi Abba, that it's referring to a case where the Ani and the Balabayas were holding a basket. And therefore, the Anach Akira was from and to a place that's 4 by 4 tefachim. Says the Gemara, Kasha Leile Rabbi Avo. This was difficult for Rabbi Avo. Mika Tani Traskel Shabayade. Does it say in the Mishnah Traskel Shabayade? Does it mention that it was a basket in his hand? Vayade Katani, but it says the hand of the person, not the basket that was in his hand. Ella Omer Rabbi Avo. Rather, Rabbi Avo says, Kigoinitz, for example, Shashil Shil Yade Lamata Megimel, that he lowered his hand beneath 3 tefachim, the kiblan over there he received it. So every time it says he placed it in a hand or took it from a hand, it's referring to a hand that's lower than 3 tefachim. And anything that's lower than 3 tefachim is loved, is considered as if it's actually resting in that area. And therefore we have an kiran anacha from and to a place that's 4 by 4 tefachim, because the person's hand is considered as if it's actually on the ground. It says the Gemara of ha'oimid katani, but it says he was standing. And if he was standing, his hand cannot be beneath 3 tefachim. And says the Gemara, 3 different ways we could say that it was beneath 3 tefachim. Number 1, b'shoicha, he was leaning. V'iba yisayim, and if you want, you can say beguma, he was standing in a pit, and therefore he was lowered down closer to the ground, and his hand was outside of the pit, and there it was able to be within 3 tefachim of the ground. V'iba yisayim, and if you want, you could say bananas, it's referring to a midget. and therefore his hand is able to be lower than 3 tefachim. Amar Rava asked the question on this explanation of Rabbi Avo, Ichbul Tana Lashmin Kol Hani. Did the Tana repeat himself and present all these cases of the Ani and the Balabayas, when they each did the whole malacha and they each did part of the malacha, Lashmin, to teach Kol Hani, all of these cases of a midget, of a person in a pit, and of a person who's leaning? These are cases out of the ordinary. The Tana is not going to trouble himself to teach the dinim of Eitzah for these rare cases. Ella Amar Rava, rather Rava said, and this is the final answer that we accept, Yadei Shal Adam, the hand of a person, Chashuv is important to him, Kedalat Adalat, as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. And therefore, when the akira is made from the yad and into the yad of the balabayas, or from the yad and into the yad of the ani, it's considered that there was an area of 4 by 4 tefachim, because Yadei Shal Adam Chashuv Kedalat Adalat. A person's hand is important to him as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. V'chein ki asa Ravin Amar Rabbi Yochanan, we bring a support to this teaching. Also when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Yadei Shal Adam Chashuv Alei, the hand of a person is important to him, Kedalat al Dalat, as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. Now the last and final part of our Gemara, sort of again a side piece. Amar Rav Oven, Amar Rabbi Eloi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, another teaching in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Zarak Chayfetz, if somebody threw an object, V'nach b'seich Yadei Shal Chaverei, and it rested in the hand of his fellow Chayiv, is Chayiv. Ask the Gemara, my Kamash Malon, what's this coming to teach us? Yadei Shal Adam Chashuv Alei Kedalat al Dalat, that the hand of a person is important to him as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. V'Amar Rabbi Yochanan Chad Azimina, but Rabbi Yochanan already said it once, and he said it clearly. He said the words, Yadei Shal Adam Chashuv Alei Kedalat al Dalat, a person's hand is important to him as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. Why does he need to say this case, that when somebody threw an item and it landed in his fellow's hand, he's chayiv? Of course he's chayiv. We already learned. A person's hand is as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. It's important to him like it's 4 by 4 tefachim. Answers the Gemara, Ma'u detemo. What would we say? You might have said, Hani mili, this is so that a person's hand is considered 4 by 4 tefachim. Heicho, where the achshavahu liyadei, where he gave importance to his hand. He went ahead and placed something in somebody's hand. He removed something from somebody's hand. Aval heicha the loy achshava, but where he did not make important to liyadei, he didn't make the hand important. Emalei, maybe not. Again, aval heicha the loy achshavahu liyadei, but where he did not make his hand important. Emalei, maybe not. In the case where he threw the object, the individual just threw it. He had no idea where it was going to land. It happened to land in his fellow's hand. In that instance, he didn't give importance to the hand as if it's a place that he wants to have the item at rest there. Maybe then we don't say that the hand's considered dalat al dalat. Kamash Malana comes to teach us that even then we say Yadei Shal Adam Chashuv Alei Kedalat al Dalat, not just when he had specific intention, but it's a general rule. A person's hand is important to him as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. So to summarize, we had our question, why in our Mishnah is there a chiyuv for the malacha of Eitzah and Achnasa if in each case there's either a kira or a nacha into or from the hand of the other person involved, and the hand of a person is not 4 by 4 tefachim. And first we presented 3 answers that attempted to say that we don't need dalat al dalat. And then we presented another 2 answers that said we do need dalat al dalat, but explained how we had it either because it was a basket or because the person was within 3 tefachim of the ground. We rejected all 5 of those answers, and we presented the last and final answer of Rava, and also brought a teaching from Rabbi Yochanan that said the same thing, that Yadei Shal Adam Chashuv Alei Kedalat al Dalat, the hand of a person is important to him as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim, and therefore we do have a kira, and we do have the anacha from and into a place that's 4 by 4 tefachim.